Institute of Sport, the Masters of Football business is delivered by experts from Australia and around the world. Learn online with unique access to networking and guest speaker events at the iconic MCG. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree. Apply now to start in February 2022. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. gis.sport/FNR.
Tunes on the EPL Show on FNR Football Nation Radio. Welcome to 2022. I am Nick Hughes, and alongside me, not a new face for the viewers, but a new face for me. Of course, I missed the last show of 2021 with the one and only Oscar Drew, but I'm here with Oscar, and I'm very much looking forward to it. How are you?
I'm all right, Nick. How are you?
I'm well. I'm pumped up after a lovely episode of The Green Room, and looking forward to some Premier League chat on the EPL Show. But before we get stuck into that, we've been having a bit of a giggle off air before we started this show. Now, Oscar, you haven't watched Sunderland Till I Die.
I have not.
I
wasn't aware this was such a point
just
of
wanted
contention.
just wanted you to extend on that for me if you can.
I don't know what to say. I haven't watched it. I saw it. I understand that it's a part of the footballing culture in lots of ways, but I decided that I had better things to do with my time, evidently.
You know what? That's a fantastic answer, and I totally respect it. So fair play. We'll move on and we'll talk EPL on the EPL Show. Who would have thought? I haven't, obviously, first show of 2020, so we haven't been on the airwaves for about a month. And
2020, we've gone back in time.
Wow, we sure have. 2022, as you can hear, Josh Parrish, he's here, ready to chime in whenever he wants to, whenever he feels like it. New year, and as always happens in this time period, the winter silly season, plenty of games, if they're not being postponed at this rate, plenty of transfer wheeling and dealing. We've also got AFCON, of course, to contend with in the Premier League at the moment. So, I mean, it's a bit like throwing a dartboard to decide where to start on this show. Given the last episode with Josh and yourself, Oscar, the discussion of your support or perhaps lack thereof of Everton. Maybe we'll dive straight in on the Toffees and the I wouldn't necessarily call it a love affair with Rafa Benitez, but it's broken up.
No, I think you're right to dismiss the label as a love affair. I think that's a fair point. No, it didn't really go well from the start, did it? From the moment he was appointed, you know, I don't know if I've seen many less enthusiastic responses. Well, it wasn't just actually a lack of enthusiasm. It was an active disgust, an active, I can't believe this is happening kind of level. And it started okay. He got off to an okay start, got some decent results. Everton, okay start to the season, but it's really fallen apart the last couple of months.
Yeah, Josh and I have spoken loads about Everton in a few of our shows, and it just seemed an appointment that was set for an inevitable doomsday at some point. It was one that as soon as it was announced, I mean, as soon as it even rumoured, it was sort of, you know, could this actually happen? Surely this wouldn't actually happen. And, you know, we've seen, you look at Jose Mourinho, he's revered by Chelsea, or at least was, perhaps not so much anymore because of the fact that he's gone to Manchester United and Tottenham. But even still, you feel like when he signed for probably United more so than Tottenham, because I guess Tottenham have that direct sort of London rivalry, but Chelsea fans didn't really care that he went to those clubs. I don't think anyway. Maybe some did. But the Benitez thing, like Liverpool fans didn't like it. Everton fans didn't like it. And you feel like the fans of the rest of the clubs were just getting ready on the couch with their popcorn and thinking, gee, this is going to be fun.
Well, I think that by this weekend's game against Brentford, Liverpool fans were pretty happy with Rafa. I think that on the basis that, they were, I think it was the 70-odd minutes singing his name, chanting Rafael Benitez on the afternoon he'd been sacked. Well, look, I think you've summed up large parts of it. I'm not really sure who benefited from that, who was going to benefit, what was the plan, what was foreseen by the Everton board. I don't really understand. It's really tough, I think. Obviously, any job in the Premier League as a manager is tough, and just to be put so far on the back foot from the start, I don't really see how anything else could have happened. With that being said, I obviously wasn't here when he was first appointed to give my opinion then, and I suppose the more optimistic side of me would almost say something like, who was a better manager at the time who was out there than Rafa Benitez? He's proven that he can manage in multiple situations over the years, and that's true. And so I guess in that sense, it's if you're going to lose Ancelotti, Rafa Benitez was just about the best manager that was left out there. So there is some world where I can see some logic behind it, but just there are so many unnecessary barriers to introduce there that it really made it a tough gig.
Yeah, and I think in all fairness to Rafa himself, I think if you talk about a baptism of fire, he really didn't have it easy. He comes into a club with not a great deal of money. We'll put it that way. I think the headline signing was Demarai Gray for £2 million, and to be fair to him, he's done quite well, and particularly when you compare it to how his teammates have done. But other than that, it was Andros Townsend on a free. And he brought back Salomon Rondon, who, was harkening back to his Newcastle days 3 or 4 years ago, which really just stunk of we have no money, so who's available, on a cheap wage or on a free transfer. So not only that, does he not really get to strengthen the squad as perhaps he might have liked, particularly when you look at Everton's spending in years gone by. But then 3-4 games into the season, I think he's only played 3 games. Dominic Calvert-Lewin goes down with an injury. He hasn't come back. Richarlison has been in and out of fitness as well. And then Luca Dean, who's probably your best player at that point. You have a falling out with him and he's out the door. And it's just been one disaster after another. So where do Everton go from here? Well,
Look, as you're speaking, there are just so many things running through my mind that I want to say. And so by this weekend's game against Norwich, Everton looked hopeless. Like they looked like a shell. There was no drive. There was no enthusiasm in that team whatsoever. They were out-tempoed and out-driven, out-energized by a Norwich team, which have had that happen to them time and time again this season. And that's been kind of like one of their most obvious weaknesses, is that they can't match it with the teams who kind of up the tempo. And yet they went and absolutely smashed Everton in that sense, scored the 2 goals in 2 minutes. There's a degree of misfortune in that the Michael Keane goal was a bit unlucky, and that's true. But, the whole game, you're watching it, and I have no idea how Everton were going to score. It didn't make any sense. I know that they did.
It was a scrappy goal at that, and fair play to Richarlison for the overhead kick that it was, but that sort of rebounded corner, it's not exactly beautiful football that creates the goal.
So Everton got a lot better in the second half when Richarlison comes on, when Rondon comes off, because Rondon is just so wasting space. He's just this slow log.
Yeah. Sorry, just to chime in here. I think signing or selecting Salomon Rondon is a sackable offence, apart from anything else that Rafa Benitez did at Everton.
Agreed.
It's like, and you can go back to the misfortune of Dominic Calvert-Lewin getting his injury as he did, and he's clearly not fully fit yet either. And that's all true. I don't know why Rondon's the answer to that. I don't know who goes, I'm missing a Premier League quality striker. What's Salomon Rondon doing? I don't understand. But not ignoring that, moving on from the small scale, I know that this show, as well as many other avenues, has spoken a lot about the transfer business that Everton have done over the last 5 years since Mashiri came in, all the wasted money, all the poor signings, the poorly constructed squad, the bit where you've got players that don't work together, too many in the same position, not enough in another position, and it didn't make sense, and overpaying for players. I understand that that's been talked about to death. And at this point in time, I'm kind of reflecting on whether I think that's almost been the scapegoat. It's kind of been the red herring that's thrown us off the broader, bizarre decisions that are being made behind the scenes at Everton that just don't make any sense. So the Rafa Benitez appointment just doesn't make any sense. The signings just don't make any sense. To not only appoint Rafa Benitez, but to give the amount of control and power that Benitez was given. So he's gone and he's wreaked havoc. He's gotten rid of a whole bunch of people behind the scenes. Obviously, Luca Digne's also gone. Like that's such a huge hole that's been left there. And it's just been consistent bad decision after consistent bad decision beyond transfers. And I think that the transfers almost take away from the fact that there's this disconnect between decisions being made at board level and the fans. On that note, I mean, if you think about who Everton's managers over the last 5 years have been, so you've got Rafa Benitez, you've got Carlo Ancelotti, you've got Marco Silva, even back to Roberto Martinez, like Ronald Koeman, all these people. These are all, not Everton people, whatever that means, whatever that concept, however much credit you want to give that.
I'm glad you mentioned the previous managers, because I've been tapping away and looking to bring them up, because it certainly felt like there haven't been very large intervals between previous managers, and certainly that is the case. So Roberto Martinez, who of course had Everton so close to the top four in the 2013-14 season with a young and very vibrant and bursting onto the scene Romelu Lukaku. Ross Barkley was playing his best football at that time as well. And in Seamus Coleman and Leighton Baines, they probably had the best fullback pairing in the Premier League at the time, and did for a large stretch of years while both those players were at their best. But he was sacked at the end of the 15-16 season, and then you just look at the list of them. Ronald Koeman lasted barely a year. David Unsworth has done a couple of caretaker roles. Sam Allardyce was probably up there with the Rafa Benitez one that sort of just left a lot of people scratching their heads, I think.
Let me just say, there was some logic to the Sam Allardyce one, because he came in when Everton were well and truly embroiled in relegation. Like that was well and truly a threat, and he did get Everton out of that.
The classic Allardyce saviour job.
He did what he does best, and that so at least there was some sense to the Allardyce appointment.
And did the Everton fans appreciate him for his efforts?
This is the thing that makes the Rafa Benitez thing all the more baffling, is that we know that compared to, say, Bobby Martinez, the game style that Allardyce and Benitez want to play is not what the Everton fans want to see.
No, for sure.
There's, I don't think it's as prescriptive as when we talk about, the Barcelona philosophy or the Arsenal way. I don't think it's that kind of level, but there's clearly some expectation that this team is on the front foot, has some authority, can go to a Norwich and boss the game. That's what the Everton fans kind of, I think, are clinging onto, because if you think about it from an Everton fan's perspective, if you've become disenfranchised with winning the league, or even finishing top four feels like so distant, and particularly over the last 10 years. So what have you got to hold on to? And it's this, we can go and watch this team and they give it a crack and they go really hard and they play attractive football, and that's kind of what you've got left to hold on to. And so Benitez, that was never going to be the case. We all knew that was never going to be the case. He said it's all about results and stuff, and if you don't get results, it looks like a mess. So I just think that speaks to how bizarre it was to appoint Benitez, because it's contrary. It's the antithesis of what Everton wants to be or wants to look like.
Even if they're not playing technically proficient football or particularly proactive football, I think the fans want to see them, if they're defending, at least defend on the front foot. And Benitez's style is very passive. It's very set up shop, then we won't press, we'll let the opposition come to us, and then we'll capitalise on their mistakes and spring on the break. And that's what he's done. His entire coaching career has been built on that well-drilled defensive approach that's, not much fun to watch, but it gets results. And then when he started to not get results at Everton, it quickly fell apart.
That's when it
But if
spiraled.
they can't have, champagne football, Everton probably want Jordan Pickford going through people's knees. That's what they want to see.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about Jordan Pickford going through knees.
That's why they should give the job to Big Dunk Ferguson.
Dunks.
I think that would be relatively well received.
It would make the most sense, I mean, to be honest, Wayne Rooney is a name that's been in the running, which obviously came through Everton, then returned to Everton after Was it after Man United or after? Had he already been in America? I can't remember. Anyway, he ended up back at Everton
From United.
towards the end of his career.
Yeah, it was straight from United. He went to Everton, then he went to MLS.
DC.
In his Everton pajamas, yes, that's right.
Yes, of course. And Frank Lampard is the other name that seems to be being thrown around. But Duncan Ferguson, the Everton fans loved it when Duncan Ferguson had that few weeks in charge. In between Marco Silva and Carlo Ancelotti, as it was, particularly until the end of the season, I don't see a worse decision that they could make. I think the classic cliche of he understands the club, he knows the values. But I mean, he had his lucky sweatband and he got the fans pumping, and Goodison Park is a great ground, and the Everton fans are a passionate bunch, and it seems that certainly you mentioned the word, Oscar, disconnect, that as well as the disconnect between Rafa Benitez and the board and the hierarchy at Everton, there seems to be a massive disconnect from the stands to the pitch at Goodison Park. And look, I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm going to be very open in saying that I'm enjoying it. Yep. But from an Everton point of view, you hope that they do get better. But like you said, I do also feel like, and I am wary as a Liverpool fan on commenting on it too much, but I do get a sense that Everton are clinging on to this sort of what they used to have, where they were the perennial best of the best for so many years with David Moyes on shoestring budgets. He did a fantastic job with them, right through from Yakubu to Phil Jagielka leading the defence for so long. Yeah, they were, not great teams to watch necessarily, but they got results. They were finishing above Liverpool sort of more often than not for a brief period of time. But
very brief.
Yeah, not brief enough in my eyes. But they've stayed at that level, and they've tried these Hail Mary passes with James Rodriguez that, he started well, but I never saw that working. Carlo Ancelotti, again, was a Hail Mary. I'm surprised that he even bothered going there at all at the time. And, while that's been happening, your Leicesters have come up, your Wolves have come up, and, Brighton are playing well now as well. And, slowly, Aston Villa, of course, had a great season last season.
West Ham.
And West Ham, of course, yeah. And slowly, Everton are... Maybe they're not actually playing any worse than they ever were, but, other teams are just getting much better.
I think if you think about or talk about what Everton need right now, and kind of the point that I was going to make about, you describe them as Hail Mary plays, but these managers who are foreign, who have a reputation, who are intended to kind of elevate Everton to the next level, because Everton's going to spend all this money on signings and managers and become this worldwide metropolitan club kind of thing. I think the appeal of someone like Duncan Ferguson is that he's the most kind of heart Everton kind of person that you can get, which is the opposite of what Everton have seen. And so I wonder if you just need someone like Duncan Ferguson to come in, reconnect the fans with the club, kind of establish or reaffirm what Everton's about. These are all such footballing cliches, I know.
Yeah.
But
you can't go wrong with a nice cliche.
In terms of what the Everton fans will be feeling right now, I imagine that they would be leaning back on these kinds of cliches, and that's what it wants. It's I want to love this club again. I want to get behind them and stuff. And if you'll get anything from Duncan Ferguson, is you'll get a team who will go in hard and, as Josh so eloquently put, get Jordan Pickford breaking kneecaps, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if all else is, if all other hope is lost, then at least they can, the new manager or whoever it is, whatever power descends on Goodison Park, can inspire some sort of energy, I think, from the players and the fans as well, because I think the players were probably certainly lacking in a certain level of motivation towards the end of that stint as well.
And let me just add one more thing on the potential managers.
For sure.
the first thing when you're talking who's going to take over, the first thing my mind goes to is, why would anyone come to Everton? I don't know why anyone would come to Everton. It doesn't make sense. I know we've had this spree of managers that are these super high caliber reputation international managers. Wayne Rooney is really interesting because he's one of the few managers who I'd say, well, in terms of the state of the club, he'd be making an upgrade to Everton.
Yeah, true.
Because,
Derby in big trouble.
A mess. So in that sense, I can see why why that would work for Wayne Rooney. I mentioned Frank Lampard. I don't know why Frank Lampard would want to do that. Why would you make your life so hard?
I think Frank Lampard's desperate for another shot in the Premier League, to be honest. I think he knows that...
Don't make your life so difficult.
You're just
setting yourself up to fail.
It's going to be super interesting. I mean, of the names that I've seen, I think Rooney will be given the job as an early guess, maybe. I think Duncan Ferguson should be given the job for the rest of the season. But you got names that are available that are kicking around. You've got Nuno, who of course was sacked by Spurs.
Nuno will resolve the Rafa Sam Allardyce problem.
No, exactly. That's his reputation has taken a massive hit, but he's still, I think, I mean, case in point, the fact that Tottenham hired him, he's still sort of seen as this engineer behind Wolves' brilliant promotion and slow ascension up the Premier League table. So, he's someone that's available that you could potentially see them going in for. I mean, God forbid they look at Nigel Pearson, who was removed from Watford recently. But we are not the Everton show. As much as I love picking on Everton, we are the EPL show. And we'll take a quick break for now. On the other side, what do we got, Oscar? There's too much. I think it'd be remiss of us to not talk about Aston Villa.
The holistic view of the Premier League and what's happened since Christmas, because it's been blown wide open.
The opposite of that. In certain areas of the table, it's been blown wide open.
Yeah.
Cool. So plenty to come still on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere.
Global career in football business. Study a master's degree online with unique access to the MCG and a big-hitting Australian industry network. Brought to you by the Global Institute of Sport, who also have campuses at the iconic Wembley Stadium in London and Etihad Stadium in Manchester. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree and join GIS's global network of football leaders. Apply now to start in February 2022. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. That's gis.sport/FNR.
Das ist kein Abseits. Stellungsfehler, Hector, und da ist das Tor. Die Iren führen mit 1:0 in der 70. Minute. Shane Long. Boah.
You're listening to FNR, Football Nation Radio.
We are more than engineers. We are more than project managers. We are more than surveyors. We are more than infrastructure specialists. We are more than planners. So, who are we? We are problem solvers, providing the highest quality service and results. We are a team of skilled professionals, focused on customer needs and outcomes. We are 23 years of industry experience, adhering to the highest safety standards. We are Melbourne, and we are right across Victoria. We are the Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions. Lanco Group. We are more than you realise, and we are ready to partner with you.
Ever wanted a career in football? From TV deals to player transfers, football is now a global multi-billion-dollar industry in need of qualified professionals who know the sport inside and out. Brought to you by the Global Institute of Sport, the Masters of Football Business is delivered by experts from Australia and around the world. Learn online with unique access to networking and guest speaker events at the iconic MCG. Be one of the first Australians to get a football master's degree. Apply now to start in February 2022. Learn more at gis.sport/FNR. gis.sport/FNR.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
Welcome back to the EPL Show. Before we do anything further, I must address a major error on my part. I misintroduced my guest star, which is terrible form from me. So hand on heart and hand in the air, I do apologise. Oscar Rutherford, welcome to the EPL Show.
Thank you, Nick Hughes. That's fantastic. Thank you. No, that's all right. I understand. It happens.
All right. Well, I'll rectify that from the beginning for next week. Moving right along, if you've just joined us or missed a portion of the beginning of our show, we've just had an in-depth discussion on all things wrong at Everton Football Club. Of course, Rafa Benitez was sacked over the weekend after Everton became just the third team to lose to Norwich City in their 21 games so far this season. Norwich, while we're touching on them, I mean, it's worth pointing out that the relegation-doomed Norwich are all of a sudden in 18th, 1 point shy of 17th placed Watford, who do have 2 games in hand on the Canaries. But all of a sudden, Dean Smith seems to be engineering a little bit of a turnaround at Carrow Road. And Dean Smith, that appointment seems to really be working out for both teams involved, because Aston Villa are enjoying a lovely little rejuvenation under Steven Gerrard, not only on the pitch, but also in the transfer market. Felipe Coutinho, of course, the first sort of big-name arrival, if you like, into the Premier League in the January window, comes on against Manchester United for his debut. Assist and a goal, 2-0 down, 2-2 draw. Couldn't be much better.
No, that's right. I think that's right. No, I think, well, first of all, just briefly on Norwich, I think you're right. I think that Dean Smith, he's added some grit to that Norwich team in a way. So, for example, the Everton game at the weekend, Norwich's capacity to see out that game when it wasn't pretty, it was pretty down and dirty, but they got 3 points, and that's the kind of thing that they perhaps were lacking a bit under Daniel Farke.
Sure.
Although we wouldn't know, because maybe they turned the corner against Brentford, and we'll never know if Daniel Farke was going to go on to bigger and better things. But, so I think...
That's true. He was sacked after a win, wasn't he?
So who knows how much that was Dean Smith's work, but no, they look like a side more capable of seeing out games. So that's good. But yes, as you say, things have gone really well for Aston Villa. I think that it's one of the clear benefits, the add-on benefits that you get with Stevie G as your manager, is that players want to come play for Villa in a way that they perhaps wouldn't if he weren't there. As you say, Coutinho came on. I don't think he was credited with the assist in the end, was he? Because I don't think he actually...
Probably unofficially. It might have been a fantasy Premier League assist, because, I mean, technically it did come off of his boot, but was it a deflection? Or either way, let's say he created the goal.
He was clearly involved in the first goal, scored the second. Yeah, but it's all going well. Alongside, of course, Lucas Digne, who was also excellent. I thought he was really, really good. And just on Villa in general, I mean, every time I watch Villa under Stevie G, they look really good. I really like watching Villa. I think that they look really positive. I think that Coutinho's a great signing. I mean, I don't know whether they'll find a way to get him and Emi Buendia to play together or not, but regardless, they've got strong players throughout the pitch. You mentioned the game against United where beyond the first half hour, and particularly in the second half, they were so much the better team. And the draw was the least they deserved. So I think that he's clearly got things going right there.
Absolutely. I mean, when Dean Smith was sacked, I was quite surprised, and honestly, I thought it was the wrong decision at the time, because I think I always thought there would be that sort of inevitable, I don't want to say crash down to earth, but that drop off for
reversion to
Aston
the mean.
Villa,
Kind of
who had the, they went from surviving in the Premier League due to a blocked goal line camera view against Sheffield United the season before to where did they end up last season? 7th or 8th? Of course, a lot of that was down to Jack Grealish's brilliance. 11th. Oh, well, there you go. They sarcasm.
No,
Oscar.
I'm sorry.
No, they were excellent for most of the season, and I think Jack Grealish's injury around January, sort of February time, probably coincided with a bit of a dip in form.
It's a great point, the Jack Grealish thing, because there was not only could you say that just generally they might have dropped down a bit, but they lost Jack Grealish, who was like their whole team, like he was so central.
You look down the years, you look at how Liverpool responded to losing Luis Suarez, you look at how Tottenham responded to losing Gareth Bale, you look at how even to an extent Chelsea responded initially to losing Eden Hazard, although Eden Hazard hasn't obviously done very well where he's gone, and Chelsea didn't to quite to the levels of Tottenham, and Liverpool didn't necessarily fail so badly, but there was always going to be, he's the captain, so there needs to be a new leader that steps up. There needs to be a new creator, because when you've got a guy like that in your team and you're a team like Aston Villa, there has to be a certain mentality of, if we're in trouble, just kick the ball in number 10 and say, go on, see what you can do. So there's different work or different patterns that they've got to figure out. There's players coming in to replace them. In particular, the Leon Bailey signing, I think he was a very exciting one in the summer, but one that I immediately thought, if he's going to succeed, it's going to take a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Leon Bailey hasn't really done much. It's been a rough time for him, but even accounting for that, across the pitch, I mean, they're missing a few players, whether that's Marvelous Nakamba, whether that's John McGinn. They didn't play at the weekend, kind of thing. Like they're not 100% fully strength. Who was it? One of the centre halves went off after half time and everything. They haven't had a fully fit squad the whole time, kind of thing. But they look so solid. They look like they have lots of good squad depth. They've got lots of creative outlets. You can see different ways that they can score goals. I think their fullbacks are excellent. Matty Cash, I think, is having an amazing
tremendous
season. I mentioned Emi Buendia. He hasn't had the best season so far, but against United, he was kind of every time Villa went forward, it was through Emi Buendia, and it didn't exactly get the results that he was after, but that was the best game I've seen him play. They've had a lot more adversity than you'd probably know, than you'd expect or you'd register, but they're performing really, really well at the moment. And so whilst the Dean Smith sacking might have been harsh, I think that Stevie G's got them, taken them perhaps to another level.
Absolutely. At the time, it might have seemed harsh, or people, such as myself, like I said, might have thought it would have been the wrong decision, but you can absolutely not deny the fact that it is so far looking like very much the right decision, because Gerrard's come in and done fantastically well. You feel like a move like that on Dean Smith can go one of two ways. It can, like it has, prove to be the right decision, and that breath of fresh air is what's needed, or it can be that, maybe there is just a little bit of that that hangover from the season before, the hangover from losing Jack Grealish, and it can, removing the manager who had done a decent enough job can, I guess, sort of push things further down. But as it is, Gerrard's, I think he understands the project as well of what Aston Villa, the project that Aston Villa is, and I think in some ways maybe Rangers fans wouldn't like someone comparing Rangers to Aston Villa, but in some ways, I think the project is very similar. You know, he joined Rangers a few years ago as obviously a club that had all kinds of issues, had come back up through the lower leagues in Scotland, and he built them into the team that not only dethroned Celtic but blew Celtic out of the water and went an entire Scottish Premier League season undefeated. And again, Aston Villa, not in terms of, you know, that Rangers and Celtic are the biggest clubs in Scotland, but Aston Villa are a similarly sized club, a very big club with deep history in the English game. You know, Gerrard's come in and understood that, and, you know, he's come with a clear vision. He's got a great staff behind him that were fantastic at Rangers as well, that he's brought over. Michael Beale and Gary McAllister, his assistants from his time in Scotland as well. And really, you have to say that none of them have put a foot wrong at the moment. And the recruitment so far, the first opportunity that he's had to bring in some new faces, Coutinho obviously makes an instant impact, and Luca Dean, like you said, a great debut for £25 million in today's market is quite cheap for a great left back, not a good left back, but a great left back. Luca Dean has been one of the top fullbacks in the Premier League for some years. But Jacob Ramsey is he's a superstar. Yeah, he's fantastic. I love watching him and Chukwuemeka. I hope I'm saying his name. The other young Aston Villa midfielder, and they're very impressive. And I was impressed by Aston Villa last season. I was impressed, maybe less so by them early in the season, but you always felt, you know, they have enough quality. Like you said, you mentioned those names that weren't involved. Marvellous Nakamba, John McGinn, the obvious one, is a fantastic player as well. So Aston Villa really can only go up. I think Josh had something to say.
Yeah, if you're done on Villa, if you've said enough, I think we need to talk about the league leaders at some point. And
probably fair enough.
The lead has gone to 11 points over the festive period. At the top of the table, Liverpool, of course, having a game in hand to make some of that up. But they extended their lead over Chelsea with a win over the weekend. It's 12 points. City have another game in hand on Chelsea as well. And Guardiola was absolutely beaming after the game, not because they won, but because across 180 minutes against Chelsea this season, they only allowed one shot on target.
It's outrageous.
So, I mean, this wasn't so much a defeat for Chelsea as a chloroforming. They were basically bundled in the back of the City bus and didn't really participate in the game. And one of the most interesting pieces I've read, opinion pieces in the Premier League so far this year, has been Ken Early's on how Manchester City leaves you feeling a little cold despite how good they are, despite how technically brilliant they are. You know, his lead in, has any team before been so good and left behind such a paltry emotional impression? And I think this is a lot to do with Manchester City's style of play being Guardiola's obsession with eliminating transition moments from the game and not allowing anyone to try anything that is unlikely to result in a goal and therefore being an exciting goal. Like the unfortunate thing is that the most wealthy team in the league is also the most optimised in that, you know, statistically it's unlikely that a player will score from 30 metres, so City players are generally not really allowed to shoot from 30 metres.
Unless it's Kevin De Bruyne bearing down on goal against Chelsea as he did on the weekend. But you're exactly right. I think, again, as a Liverpool fan, you know, I obviously see or consume a lot of Liverpool-based media on social media or on articles or YouTube videos or whatever. And there's obviously that, you know, whether or not it's a manufactured rivalry or not, given the title races that they've been in the last couple of years. But it's something that I've seen pop up a few times, and I look forward to reading that article after the show because I'm interested to see what Ken Early has to say. But
I'll read you a little passage from it now, actually. This is Guardiola, you know, going on and on to the media, you know, guys, this is so good. One shot on target.
I am so happy.
180 minutes.
More than you believe.
So happy. If the final whistle came as a blessed release to all concerned, at least nobody could dispute the City had been the better team. We deserved it, said Guardiola. I like football when it is fair. I was happy to win against Arsenal, but we didn't deserve it. And when we deserve it, we feel better. This clinical smothering of Chelsea felt better than the deliciously unjust 2-1 victory at Arsenal with the crazy 93rd minute winner by Rodri. Most fans would disagree. That crazy Arsenal match with its chaos, controversies and violent swings and momentum was the obvious dramatic highlight of this 12-match winning streak, which has mostly consisted of City taking candy from a series of babies. But then the gap between football as understood and practiced by top coaches like Guardiola and football as understood by and experienced by the fans has never been wider. And, you know, if you saw the scenes in the stands after that 93rd minute Rodri winner, I don't think a single City away fan was still wearing their shirt after that one went in. You know, that was winning when you don't deserve it is almost sweeter as a match-going fan. But for Guardiola, you know, because it wasn't quote-unquote fair, he doesn't have the same emotional response to it. And I think that's very interesting. And, you know, I'm sure City fans are enjoying, you know, winning all these games and being in contention for so many major trophies, but I don't think the neutrals really relish watching City play.
I hear what that's saying and I hear the argument, I really do. But what I am struck by is just an overwhelming sense of, but this is the direction that football is going in as a whole. This is a symptom of the broader problem, not the problem itself. As in, you know, of course, if you give a team as much money as City have and you allow them to spend all that money and to buy the success that they do, then it makes sense that at some point someone will come along and go, what's the way that we can play to minimize the opportunity for us to lose to teams that we shouldn't lose to? This is it. All right, we're going to do that. Like, that's what football hasn't always been, but is becoming. And I feel the same way about the fact that, you know, Liverpool and Chelsea always beat Norwich and Burnley. Like, you know, football isn't fair. It's not fair. It's not. And I don't know, you know, I don't think City are the only ones who are experiencing or benefiting from it being unfair. I think they probably do it more so than lots of other teams, and I accept that point. But it's not fair. That's what we sign up for. We still watch.
I also think, you know, dominant teams of the past have provoked stronger emotional responses in other supporters. If you flash back to, and I know we've all only really seen highlights of these teams, but the initial Manchester United side, a team of bastards essentially, with Cantona and Mark Hughes, you know, stepping on people and flying into tackles, Roy Keane, you know, that was a team who scored a lot of late winners, had mental toughness and strength and all those kinds of qualities, and battered opposition into submission. You know, the treble sides of Ferguson were much the same. Maybe they were flashier, but they reserved their brilliance for sort of moments of drama, and there was always kind of competitive tension involved in those games. So what are some of the other dominant sides? Like Mourinho's Chelsea, for example, were the ultimate like kind of wrestling heel in the sense that, you know, they had you know, Frank Lampard and John Terry as players that opposition fans love to hate and so forth. But City is just sort of bland to me. Like, there are almost no players that you can say the team is actually built around, because, you know, you could say, oh, Kevin De Bruyne, he's irreplaceable, and then he misses most of the season and City still win the title comfortably. Ilkay Gundogan randomly scores 10 goals. You know, Riyad Mahrez, Raheem Sterling, these amazing players who City would be just fine if they left. You know, like,
yeah, exactly.
There's nothing to latch onto as a neutral fan or an opposition fan for this team's identity. It's just a series of like interchangeable pieces. There's not a lot of personality about it, I think, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, there's sort of a structural perfectionism or something. I don't know like what to call it, but you're exactly right, where you can just move any of the chess pieces and it's like nothing's changed. Like, I mean, part of the, like, imagine if the title...
We cannot replace him, but actually you can and you will.
Exactly. Imagine if the title race was super close right now, and Liverpool obviously don't have Mo Salah and Sadio Mane now, and you're thinking, okay, well, how are they going to find the goals? And if City were in the same scenario and didn't have that outrageous sort of depth, how exciting that conversation would be. But for Man City, like you said, if Sterling and Mahrez are injured, well, guess we have to play Jack Grealish or Phil Foden or Bernardo Silva or Gabriel Jesus or Ferran Torres up until he left, of course. And, I'm sure they'll strengthen again in the summer and probably sign Erling Haaland or something stupid.
And the other thing is the style of play isn't built around end-to-end. It's the opposite of that. It's a game played in, the one half at a time, designed to be such so that City don't concede goals in transition. So they monopolise the ball. So they play it in the half court, so to speak, and commit any number of tactical fouls to stop the opposition going the other way if they need to, very cynically so. I think it's maybe also as you talk about trends in the sport, Oscar, a result of the kind of analytics revolution in football where you have all these XG maps and you know exactly the areas where players are most likely to score goals, and therefore, this City team and their dominance has been built around, De Bruyne moments of brilliance aside, a series of tap-ins, essentially.
Yeah, that has been the Man City goal, that work it wide, the cutback,
6-yard box, open goal.
And
it doesn't really matter who that player is.
Yeah,
in the end of it.
Gabriel Jesus, Raheem Sterling, they're always there at the back post to prod it home. I make every effort I can to remind my Man City fan mates that Gabriel Jesus is a tap-in merchant.
But how will this team be remembered? And to me, it only conjures up feelings of indifference if you set aside the kind of ethics of the ownership and the FFP stuff. Fundamentally indifferent. It's like the default outcome is City winning the league. Yeah. There's not much. There's not much to be said after the season is done and dusted when City are the title winners, because it's like if you ran the simulation 1,000 times, then they win at 900.
It's if I can just add one thing, the Premier League has become, to coin a movie quote, or it's become the thing that it almost sought to destroy or was proud that it wasn't, in that everyone always said La Liga, Barcelona or Real Madrid are going to win it every year. Bundesliga, Bayern Munich win it every year. Liga and PSG win it every year. And, the Premier League always had, is it going to be United, Chelsea, City, or, Arsenal in years gone by, and obviously Liverpool now in the last handful of years. It's become that sort of dominant thing. But Josh said, how would this Man City team be remembered? I'm keen to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, but I don't want to answer that. I want to say something else first.
Okay, sure.
Maybe my apathy levels are just far too high, and the world sucks and I hate everything. I don't know. When I say stuff like, you say, Liverpool are different because if Liverpool lose Salah and Mane, for example, that team becomes really different and it significantly drops and they can't do the City thing. And I hear that and I accept that. But Liverpool are going to go and spend some money on a better player. They're going to buy...
I wouldn't be so sure.
Sure. The big teams will go and replace their players with players, and Liverpool will always be okay, and Luton Town are always going to be the losers from that relationship. Yeah. Like, I accept that it's to a greater degree Manchester City are doing that, but that's what football is, and I think it's a myth. It's a pretend thing that English media and fans have created about the Premier League being meaningfully more competitive than everyone else, because the same 6 teams are the ones competing for the 6 with, a few coming in and out every few years. Like, that's what it is. And, that's no more competitive than Serie A. And I accept that, Bayern always win the Bundesliga. That is true, except for when Dortmund do it. So, like all of these leagues are just on this different point of the spectrum, on this different scale of it's not fair. And so I find it hard to be, particularly... To have a response, I guess that's kind of the point, to have a response to Manchester City, but to feel that that's any less fair or any less appealing than all the other than the fact that all the other teams that just spend more money and beat all the smaller teams, because that's what football is. That's what it is.
I mean,
we do.
But there's always the element, no matter the economic, inequality in football. There's always the element, because it's a low-scoring game, that there can be an upset. But City, I'm feeling that less and less because the other team is almost not participating in the game. You know, Liverpool always give you a chance. Say what you like about Liverpool's massive transfer spend in 2018 or whatever, but you know they attack, they leave space in behind. There's often high-scoring games that they're involved in. You know, they always give you a chance. Chelsea sometimes fall short in front of goal, and they can be beaten. You know, but Manchester City, and I'm increasingly feeling like they are across the 38-game league season, maybe not so much in the Champions League where Guardiola has the propensity to do something insane and completely change the game plan, like dropping his entire midfield in the Champions League final last year, for example. But across the 38-game season, I think Manchester City increasingly are almost invincible, and in a one-off game against a smaller opponent where you used to have a little bit of a little bit of end-to-end action, a few meager opportunities, a few scraps for, you know, a Crystal Palace to feast upon. Yep. Now they're only registering a couple of shots a match. It almost can't happen.
I do accept the point that Manchester City do that to a whole new level of taking the fun out of the game. Like, I accept that.
I dread watching them, really. I love watching the highlights, but I dread watching 90 minutes. And that's a kind of an indictment on a team that should be like super entertaining to watch just by being the Harlem Globetrotters, but they're actually quite careful and conservative in the way they maintain possession and don't take risks.
Yeah, well, but from Manchester City's perspective, from Pep Guardiola's perspective, that gets him the results, and that's what he's there for. Yeah. Like as in, what were we expecting to happen at some point, other than a team to exploit that fact and go, what's the most foolproof game plan that we can have? All right, here it is. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think
No, I'm not saying it's not smart. It's obviously smart.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just a shame.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't true or is wrong. I'm just saying that doesn't bother me in the way that, you know, the whole structure bothers me if we're going to talk about it. But yeah. Yeah,
I think that's probably a deeper conversation to be had over a number of hours and days and months and years probably. But yeah, there certainly is that feeling that, you know, teams, particularly the smaller ones. I mean, even as Josh mentioned, the two Chelsea games against Man City, the Manchester derby, where, you know, teams
Liverpool were competitive. Liverpool had a fun game with City.
We should have beaten them, but we won't touch on that one. But yeah, you just get the feeling that teams roll over against Man City now, which is upsetting because. Again, like Josh said, you always felt that, you know, Selhurst Park was a tough place to go, or Turf Moor was a tough place to go. And, you know, even as incredible as those Manchester United teams were, which, you know, to be fair, I guess they had a little bit of that themselves. The Man United are going to win the league every year sort of thing. But it was at least, there was sort of some unpredictability, I guess, about it. Whereas City, you know, this 12-match winning streak, we're thinking, only 12. All right. You know, because it will become 13, 14, 15, 16. I mean, what's the record? Is it 16? I think Liverpool did it a couple of times in their title-winning season. City have done it a few times. But, you know, City have Southampton, Brentford, Norwich, Tottenham, Everton. I mean, I can list any list of opponents. They don't really ever look like losing to anyone except for Liverpool, because Liverpool is a team that will never back down and would always take it to them. But look, I mean, you can say what you want as well about all of that and about the money spent, but there's no denying obviously the quality that they have and the job that Pep Guardiola has done and the players that they have. I guess, unfortunately, the way of the world and the way of the sporting world, in particular the footballing world, is I guess these days you sort of just put your hand up and say, well, that's,
and the thing is, they're so
entrenched.
They're so entrenched that losing 3 or 4 of these first-team players would almost not do them any harm, because they've got this amazing youth academy now with players, sort of plug-and-play type players. So it's a real gauntlet that's been laid down to, I guess, the other super clubs who do have, you know, the money to maybe compete with City, to maybe build something approaching what they have and try and compete with the ball again and try and beat them at their own game. I don't know. Maybe that's suicide. Thomas Tuchel certainly seemed to think it was. You know, he didn't take any risks in that game. I guess Chelsea have to take their fair share of responsibility for how dull that first versus third affair ended up being.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was, two of the best 11s ever assembled in Premier League history, and it was one of the worst games I've ever watched. And that's what got me thinking about this.
I love that's Them's the
Sorry
ways
to bring the mood of the show down so much.
No, not at all. On that note, I think what are we? Are we about an hour in? I can't remember when we started, but we're almost done. Might as well run through a little bit of a preview of what's to come. So tomorrow morning, two decent matches as well on paper. You look at them, Leicester City and Tottenham. That's at the King Power at 6:30 a.m. Decent time. Get up before work. Tottenham are still unbeaten under Antonio Conte. I still despise Tottenham and think they are absolutely rubbish, but Antonio Conte is getting results at the moment, unless they continue to be the ever inconsistent, ever Brendan Rodgers-y team that they are. And Brentford, Manchester United, which, of course, is a replay of, I think it was Rangnick's first home match was against Brentford, which they won 1-0, I believe. But United will go to Brentford Community Stadium at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Brentford coming off a 3-0 loss against Liverpool. Their strong start has really petered out a bit. I think they beat Aston Villa a couple of weeks ago, but 4-1 loss against Southampton, 3-0 loss against Liverpool in their last two. Predictions from you, Leicester, Tottenham?
I think these should be fun games. I think Tottenham will win 3-1.
He's gone with the scoreline as well. Impressive.
Yep. No, I'm going out all the stops.
I like it.
And do you want me to go on to Brentford Man U right now? I can do it right now.
Do it.
United win 2-1.
I like it. I have to match you.
Big teams win and football isn't fair, just by the way.
Yes, for sure. I'll have to match you on the scoreline production. Leicester City 2-0 over Tottenham. And Brentford United, I'll go with another 1-0 for United, I think. We, of course, have the second leg of the League Cup semi-final on Friday morning, Arsenal and Liverpool. Arsenal should be okay after kicking up a massive fuss and complaining about Liverpool having the audacity to call for a postponed game and then doing the exact same thing themselves against Tottenham over the weekend, because, that makes sense.
Yep.
But Arsenal should have most of their players back, I believe, bar obviously Granit Xhaka, who was sent off in the first leg. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. They'll face Chelsea. The winner will face Chelsea in the final. And the weekend doesn't really look that exciting. Man United, West Ham is a headline fixture. Everton, Aston Villa as well, the two teams that we just spoke about. Luca Dean gets a quick return to Goodison Park. Chelsea, Tottenham.
Yep.
Leicester, Brighton looks a decent one as well.
I think Palace, Liverpool will be interesting.
Yeah,
I think United West Ham's going to be a good game. Remember what happened last time? Is Mark Noble coming off the bench and missing the penalty? So hopefully we get a repeat of that. That was my highlight of the season so far.
Yeah, goodness me. It's not like anyone would have watched literally what happened in the Euros 2 months earlier and thought, let's not bring someone off the bench for the sole purpose of taking one penalty kick. But that'll be a good one at Old Trafford Sunday morning.
I think Moisey stopped watching the Euros after Scotland got knocked out.
I think so too. Leeds,
so did Lachlan
Newcastle,
Flanagan, by the way.
Leeds and Newcastle, an interesting little relegation battle, as is Watford Norwich. It's a couple of relegation 6-pointers there as well. So after saying it's not really a very exciting weekend,
I think it's quite an interesting weekend.
I've just about rattled off the entire lineup of games. So let's get two predictions from you out of the list of matches.
Oh, gee, throw me under
anything that you can see happening from the weekend. Anything that sticks out to you.
Not necessarily results. It could be someone to score, something to happen.
Yeah.
Just hit me with someone.
Well, now that you've told me that, Palace are going to beat Liverpool. Just putting it out there. I can see it happening. Liverpool shake you. Don't miss
I think
something.
a West Ham player is going to imitate Cristiano Ronaldo's celebration when they score. I think that's going to happen. That's been in the meme universe of late.
Yeah,
so
and Jesse Lingard's probably going to go and join in. I raise you your Crystal Palace to beat Liverpool. I'm getting my poker terminology wrong. I see your Crystal Palace to beat Liverpool, and I raise you a Takumi Minamino masterclass and an 8-0 Liverpool win.
Okay.
I'm joking.
I imagine somewhere between those two is how the game will go. Yeah,
I think so too.
trivia question before we go.
Ugh.
Which former Melbourne Victory player is on staff at Southampton?
Former Melbourne Victory. What era Melbourne Victory were we talking?
Season 1.
Ugh, I wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah, you guys are probably both too young. FVS did a great interview with him this week. The Austrian Richard Vin Bickler is now Ralph Hasenhüttl's assistant at Southampton. Isn't that cool?
Austria friends.
Yeah, indeed. And he said in that interview that the A-League would be a great place for him to come to start his coaching career once he finally gets his pro license.
Oh, wow. That'd be fantastic.
So there you go. Maybe you'll end up coaching the Victory. That was a great tidbit. And I was quite heartened to see what he's gone on to since scoring Victory's first ever goal at Olympic Park back in the day.
Brilliant. Oh, good on him. That's fantastic. Well, we might as well end it there. And with another Premier League, A-League crossover, Carl Jenkinson signing for Melbourne City tonight, which is an interesting little move, coming in at right back to replace Nathaniel Atkinson, who is of course off to Scotland. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that one. But thank you very much for joining us on the EPL show with myself, Nick Hughes, and Oscar Rutherford, my very esteemed guest. Enjoy your week in Premier League football, and we'll catch you next week, same time, same place.
We are more than engineers. We are more than project managers. We are more than surveyors. We are more than infrastructure specialists. We are more than planners. So, who are we?